Welcome to my podcast. This is Mary Turderoff, and you are listening to Jump In with Mary. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this very special episode. It's our first virtual episode, and it's our first episode of season 3. And from LA, where I am, to Tennessee, we have found a way to connect despite all the logistical hiccups. And we have the beautiful Dr. Kristine Jones. How are you, my friend?
Hi, Mary. I'm great. It's been an interesting morning, but
yes, but you know what? Okay, so we had a lot of obstacles to overcome in terms of connecting from LA to Tennessee, but we stayed positive and we just pushed through, and I kept telling myself things are not going as I expected, but I'm going to be positive. And I know that we talked a lot about that because you do a lot as far as wellness goes for your patients, and your life philosophy is extremely upbeat. Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's jump in.
Well, so just looking at what just happened in the last 15 minutes, Mary, being present is probably the one thing that I use every day. Slowing down is what truly gets through these obstacles, being present in the moment. And a lot of us do the sort of, it's a defense mechanism. We kind of freeze a little bit. So what happens is there's two kinds of people that deal with stress. There's two general categories. Okay. There are the speeder uppers, and then there are the slower downers to the freezing point. So the key in managing this kind of stressful situations is to be present, not to speed up, because if you speed up, you're going to miss the moment, and your thinking kind of just goes so fast that you're not present enough to problem solve in the best optimal way. Or some people freeze and then they just can't react enough to do the problem solving.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's, it's day to day being present. The biggest thing that I think has helped me on my journey of being a positive person is taking the time to be on a journey to grow in emotional maturity. And the more I look around, I see my patients, I see everyone around me. We all are on this path of reaching emotional maturity. Some of us are in the baby steps and just starting to walk. Some of us are kind of, going a little faster. Others are running. And what I notice with my patients are the ones that are further along in that emotional maturity journey, they are healthier, not just emotionally, but physically.
Wow.
Most people I see are in the earlier stages. Most people around us are probably somewhere in their 10-year-old selves, really. The people that you see that may retreat when there is, any kind of stressful situation, the passive aggressives, the defensive people, or those that tend to, when they're in stressful situations, they kind of retreat and they withdraw or they get depressed. And this is many of us. And these things change from day to day. Like one day we might do a really good job, and another day something triggers us and we get into this place of almost like retreating to our 10-year-old self, But I think the trick is just to always be open to growth. Be honest with yourself, where you are moment by moment, day by day, and slow down and be present in each moment. So the first step is awareness. Be aware where you are in that moment so you can pause, and out of that awareness, understand where you are and what you need to do to make the best decision in that moment with clarity.
Absolutely. That makes me think of a situation that a lot of people are experiencing, men and women. There isn't, at least in LA, I know you have lived in different states, and so you have a unique perspective. But in a busy, hustling, and bustling city life, there are a lot of people that hate their jobs. Hate with a capital H. It's not a judgment. You're allowed to hate a situation or circumstance you're in. But let me give you an example of this cultural mindset that is a little disheartening. I have a friend who decided to leave her job for taking care of herself, for mental health, to be with family, for all very positive reasons. And the reaction from colleagues was, an initial reaction was, are you okay? Do you have cancer? What happened? I mean, this is like a corporate mill that churns you for decades. And there are people like that who've been part of the system. So, I mean, I think that says a lot. Does it, that's kind of jarring, right? That's the initial response when someone says, I'm going to leave, take a leave, and everybody thinks you're dying because you're only allowed to leave or take a break if you're dying. What?
Absolutely. And it triggers what happens is when someone takes that action, it triggers the insecurities of the people judging that person. It
Wow.
kind of
Yes.
rocks them like, hey, because it it speaks the truth to that person that maybe if you had the courage, you also could have left. But to protect, it's a self-defense. So instead of that person looking at themselves and saying, let me examine, maybe I can have the courage to leave and make a U-turn and jump off this cliff, it's easier to point the finger and judge and say, ooh, why did they do that? Why did they quit their job? So judgment often of others is the inability to have courage to to self-examine our own fears and insecurities.
I love that definition, Dr. Jones. Wow. Let me just digest that for a second. Your definition of judgment is very powerful. I love that.
And when we stop that judgment, it takes courage to have compassion and kindness towards ourselves and to accept ourselves. And only when we do that, we can give that to another human being.
Hmm.
And that's when judgment stops.
How do we give that to ourselves? I know it's a big question, but for people listening, where, you have to almost reverse engineer your brain and your life. Where do you start? In what little way can you start?
Great question, Mary. I think that place starts with the acceptance of yourself and giving yourself permission to be human. And letting go of the expectations of the expectations you have on yourself, of what others expect of you, and just enveloping yourself in that love and acceptance that comes from above. So there's a spiritual connection that has to happen where the person says, I am unconditionally loved by the higher power. And that may be whatever that higher power is. For each person, that's different. We all come from different faiths and backgrounds, but it's that connection with your spiritual power that says, I am enough. I am worthy. I am loved. Okay. And many of us, there's a lot of talk about the attachment theory and, how we're all attached differently. There's some people that are attached securely and others are more the anxious attachment style. So, I mean, this topic is so deep, but at the very simple level, you must spiritually connect and accept yourself as a human being created by God that is not perfect, and
Mm.
allow yourself to be human, allow yourself to make mistakes, and deeply understand that you're loved, and then be able to give that love and kindness to yourself without an expectation to be perfect or to reach some sort of um, meet a standard. So it's that relationship with yourself, that you
Right.
give that kindness and love to yourself. And once you do that, it's easier to project that to other people. And that's where judgment can lessen.
Mm. You mentioned two kinds of attachments, anxious and secure. Can you just give us a breakdown of what is it? What does an anxious attachment look like in real life and a secure attachment?
So this is amazing. There's so much research that's been done in this area in the last couple of decades. We used to think that once your attachment happens, and usually that happens between the ages of 0 and 2 or 3. So way back when you're a child, we used to think that once that happens, you're done. You cannot change that, because that attachment gets into your subconscious mind and it colors everything that happens to you for the rest of your life. Now we know that we can change that. So the different types are: secure attachment is when a child grows up with a primary caregiver, and it's usually the mom, that every time there's a need, like that child cries or needs attention, the needs are met. So that child is securely attached that if I need something, it's an emotional need or physical need, my caretaker is going to take care of me and meet me where I am. So it's a safe emotional bond, emotional connection.
Okay.
There are 2 or 3 insecure attachment styles where there's one called anxious preoccupied, where it may not be a fully dysfunctional childhood, but it may just be that, the parent is not always present. In our
Okay.
society, like our children, where if you were a mother that worked, that may create a child that has the anxious preoccupied. Even if the mom was loving and caring towards the child, if that mom went and worked for 8 hours and
Right.
that child was in the care of caretakers, that child learns that, okay, this is a really loving bond, lovely connection, but sometimes it's taken away.
Right. And I experienced that. I think that's so common, right? You go to
Yes.
work 2 weeks in, especially in the US.
Yes.
And you're right. You're gone for 8 hours a day, which is a majority of their waking day.
Yes. But the amazing research now is showing that you can actually change and go from an insecure attachment to secure attachment if you do the work as an adult. It's
Okay.
possible. We used to think that it's not possible. So a lot of this, the relationship with ourselves has a lot to do with the attachment styles that we inherited as children. And then the work that we do to change that and to grow that.
Okay. That's very promising. And that's wonderful because we are accountable for our own future, our present moment as adults, as adults. And with that topic, I want to segue into, because I think it goes hand in hand with changing your reality. You are an MD, yet I know that that's not the end all be all of your life because you have found fun hobbies and ways to be happy. When we met, we talked about dancing. And I want to talk about that you can have a career and you can have a bunch of hobbies that are completely unrelated and perhaps should be unrelated. I read really quick, I read an article in Psychology Today that said people who have jobs where they're very sedentary, like somebody working on a computer, their hobbies should be leaning towards more like hiking and movement. And then maybe vice versa. If you have a very physical job, your hobbies should be a little more focused on being sedentary. So let's talk about that and give me your example because I know you have hobbies and that makes you
Yes.
very happy. Let's dip
Yes.
into that.
Hobbies are key, because I think the mistake that most people do and we're conditioned to make this mistake, is to have our jobs and our responsibilities as top priorities.
Yes.
But what happens when you
And it
do
should
that
not be
and
a
you,
top priority, is what you're saying, right?
no, no, your job should be probably like the 10th on the priority list.
Yeah.
And here's the trick with that. If you prioritize fun and your hobbies, where you fill your cup so high, you are able to do the things like your job and your responsibilities so much better. So this is about 15 years ago. I had a pretty bad burnout as a physician. Okay. What happened was my cup was so empty because I was prioritizing my job and my patients and all my responsibilities as number one. And
Right.
because I was not filling my cup by my hobbies, by listening to my heart, by taking care of myself, eventually I got burned out and there was nothing more to give. So then I realized that the trick is, and I'm going to say this as a doctor, do not put your patients first as a doctor. Okay? Because the minute you start doing that and you abandon yourself and your needs, eventually, it may take a year, 2 years, 3 years, eventually that cup is going to dry out. And who's going to suffer? Your patients. So the
Right.
best gift that you can give to your patients, the best gift that I give to my patients is I take the best care possible of myself for myself. I go dancing. I do the things that fill my heart and soul and make me happy. So then when I walk into a room with a patient, I am fully present and I'm happy and my cup is full and overpouring and I can give that love and care and attention and my soul and presence to that person.
Makes a lot of sense. And it's really analogous to parenting life because you hear a lot of people say, if I don't step away for myself, I become more resentful, angry. The house life, it feels like a dark cloud over home life. And absolutely, yes.
It's kind of the analogy, when you look at a plane, who is like picture a plane with 300 passengers. Who is
Yeah,
the most important, whose wellness is the number one priority on that
right. The
plane?
pilot.
The pilot.
Right.
And that's, in medicine, we've had this culture of going the extra mile, sacrificing yourself as a physician. I mean, this is all about self-sacrifice. Our whole career is based on this. And we create this culture starting from even before medical school that your needs don't matter. Okay.
Right.
That self-sacrifice is what's going to take you to
To the
become a
top.
doctor. And maybe there's some truth to that, but that's a very dangerous place to play because that's why burnout is so high amongst doctors. Did you know that over 400 physicians commit suicide every year?
Wow. And I'm sure that's not just that industry. I'm sure in my industry, in the legal industry, yeah,
Yeah, right.
that's very
So we're trying to change
shocking.
the culture and, saying to young physicians, your patients don't come first. At first, it's almost like a shock. Like, what do you mean my patients don't come first? Of course, because we're all indoctrinated with that. Put your patients first. It's this altruism
Right.
concept that we all are attracted to when we go into this profession. But when we truly understand why we must put our needs first, because it's for the goodness of our patients to do that, it clicks and it makes sense. And I
Absolutely.
must say that my job as a physician, if you gave me $100 million, I would wake up every day and do what I'm doing today.
Wow.
It's, it's like volunteer
Yes.
work. I just happen to get paid.
I love that. That is such an ideal for everybody to achieve.
Yeah.
But you've worked for it. It's also, I think sometimes people look at happy people, like when I met you, you had dazzling glitter eyeshadow, beautiful short dress on, and I thought, man, this is a happy woman. But I think the biggest misconception when people meet people like you is they think that you're just happy and that it just came to you that way, that everything must have fallen, all the chips must have fallen where they belonged. And that cannot be further from the truth. It is a full-on day-to-day job.
100%. And I want to share this with you, Mary. My biggest teachers and blessings have been my biggest failures. I failed out of medical school not once, twice. I lost a job early in my career. And these are the very failures that taught me how to do things right. Unless you do something wrong, you're not going to learn how to do it right. The burnout that I learned from happened 20 years ago, but I still use that, and every time it happened, I was like, there's a lesson I haven't learned. And those failures were what taught me to get to a place I am, where I don't negotiate with my wellness.
I love
don't
that.
take a job that takes away from who I am as a human being. Okay?
That's profound. Don't
I
negotiate your
have,
wellness.
no, do not negotiate your wellness. That's your number one priority.
Yeah.
Because if you're not well, you're not going to be able to do anything else well.
Yes. And, I wanted to mention part of wellness feels like it's about surrounding, you have your inner world, which is very real and very primary, but you also have the outer world. And I feel like it's been a big journey, sometimes a difficult journey for us to surround ourselves with the right people that will help us on our journey. Let's talk about that. What type of people should you have in your life? And what type of people should you, very nicely wish well and wish goodbye, wish farewell with no blame, with no guilt,
Right.
right? Just a farewell.
That is such a profound and important question you're asking, because it's a tough one. Because, we, in our world, even the best people that we're surrounded with, they're not God. Nobody is perfect. There's levels. Like, obviously, if you have a toxic person in your life, the key is when you have that good relationship with yourself and you honor yourself and you respect yourself and you love yourself, you're able to recognize when someone is being unhealthy with you and crossing those boundaries. And it's easier to let go of that person and say goodbye, whether it's a marriage or a friendship or a work relationship. So the key is to work on becoming healthy yourself emotionally and that relationship with yourself. People stay in toxic relationships because they themselves have a level of toxicity with themselves. And they don't understand, or maybe they understand, but they don't have the courage to honor, respect, and love themselves. It's a lot of this is subconscious, but that's where it starts. That's why I always say your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship. But you're absolutely right. So surrounding yourself with loving, kind, accepting, non-judgmental people that love you and want the best for you, that is key. And that is key not only to your mental health and well-being, but your physical health and well-being. I have a panel of 2,000 patients, and it's so often I see autoimmune disease show up, cancer show up. Real chronic illnesses I see in people who are surrounded in toxic relationships. And it takes a lot of courage to let go. But the key starts with the work within.
Right. And I know it's kind of fun for us LA folks to want to know about your transition from LA life to Tennessee. for you, a little personal question was, I don't know what the question really is, because I was going to ask, was it easy to connect to nature and self and therefore God? Because at the end of the day, I guess you could still be in a hustling, bustling city and find nature and find a space to connect with the world and everything around you. But I mean, what does it really make a difference when you live in city life versus selling your house and you're giving the keys and going to a beautiful cottage in the middle of nowhere?
I think aesthetics matter. Like
Yeah.
living in nature matters and it can wake you up faster, but you can wake up anywhere. And
Oh,
sometimes people wake up faster in the most unsettling and harsh environments.
wow. That's
So
food
it
for thought.
doesn't matter. I really don't think it matters where you are. You can wake up anywhere. What it really truly takes is to slow down, pause,
Mm,
and to listen to your heart. I really think that God and that spiritual force speaks to us into our heart. But you have to silence things. You have to slow down enough and silence the noise enough to hear that call. So the worst thing we do as a society, what do? We have a 9 to 5 job on the rat wheel and just go in and out every day. Just go, 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 go. Well, there's no space for you to hear your heart's calling. It's hard to connect to God when you're in that rat race. So absolutely, I agree with you. If you have a slower lifestyle and live somewhere like out in the country and you're retired and you can hear your heart a little bit louder, sure. But you can do that in a bustling city.
right.
You can tune off everything, and meditation is a great tool for that. Starting the morning with that morning meditation is such a powerful practice. And I've learned that actually you can speak to your subconscious mind in the very first moment of awakening. You know, that moment in the morning when you're like sort of awake, but not really?
Yeah.
Your subconscious mind is active.
Mm,
So that you start there. But if you wake up really quick and you rush out the door and you don't even have a moment to pause or connect spiritually, you're just on automatic. You're not there. Your heart is screaming, but there's no one is listening. And
right.
that's where a lot of times I see chronic illness shows up. Someone gets cancer and then that allows it's almost like nature and God slowing you down. Just,
Right.
I've heard this so much from patients. My cancer patients say my cancer was the biggest gift that God gave me. Why? Because it allowed me to just stop everything, slow down, wake up, and start listening to my
Absolutely.
heart, listening to God, just having my eyes and heart and soul open to see what this life is about. Why am I here? To ask the big questions.
I
And we
love that.
cannot do that when we're just going, going, going.
Absolutely. And no time is ever enough time with you, Dr. Jones. But I am going to ask my last question of our interview. If you had to list three things that someone can implement into their lives today as a happiness project for themselves, just three simple, basic things,
Okay.
what would they be?
The number one thing I would say would be the permission to be human.
Okay.
Learn and practice daily giving yourself the love, the compassion, the kindness, the non-judgment to be human, which means it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to just not have it all together. So practice giving yourself that self-love, okay?
Okay.
And work on that relationship with yourself. Two, one of the key tools for happiness is to learn to communicate with
Mm.
people around us, okay?
Okay.
You probably have heard of Jefferson Fisher, the
I actually
lawyer.
have not. No, I have not.
Yes. Oh, he's amazing. So he teaches communication in conflict situations, how to have difficult conversations. So it's really important to lean in and learn how to communicate well, because life is the challenge with life a lot of times is the difficult communication, difficult conversations.
Right.
Okay. So connecting with yourself spiritually, self-love, that relationship with yourself. And then second is to be able to connect with others and learning good communication skills to be able to do that.
Right.
And third, finally, is just slow down.
Yeah.
Slow down.
That's
Okay. And listen to your heart. That's the key.
right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, all your advice. I think it's so relevant. It's so applicable. And I just want to say that I am in love with you. You're just the best doctor ever. I wish you were here and you were my doctor. But
You're
your
awesome,
patient.
Mary. Thank you. It was such a blessing to meet you. I feel like, there are those God moments that people are put in each other's paths. And I feel like it was just a God thing,
Yes.
and when you see somebody at that level and you connect, it's magical. And, and then when you recognize that, you start gravitating, and yeah. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you
absolutely.
for
No,
being you.
it was exemplary of everything you said today, because you had in your eyes, you were present when you greeted me and introduced yourself. You were very present. That's like in the eyes. And you had a razzle dazzle in your eyes because you were happy, because you're dancing and you're doing all these wonderful things. So, and today you broke that down for us. And I really appreciate that. This is one of my favorite topics. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to share you with everybody that I know.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jones.
Happiness recognizes happiness.
Oh, yes. I love that. Yes.
Thank you.
You know what? We're going to end with that. Thank you so much, Dr. Jones.
Thank you.
Dear listeners, if you like what you heard, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and follow me on my journey on Instagram and YouTube. Until next time.